morning, and thanks for watching. Today's video, we're going to prepare this Apimaye hive for springtime. We need to clean it up real good. We need to make some modifications in it so that we can administer oxalic acid vaporization a lot easier than we had been doing in the past. Today it's January 21st and it's 6 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Not much to do outside except to remove dead bees from the landing boards and entryways. Bees don't have to be fed just yet. So between reading magazines and watching videos, it kind of gets boring. So it's a good time to prepare the hives. So we'll show you how we do it. And I think you'll be interested in the Broodminder system that we install in these hives and how we've modified them to accept easier oxalic acid administration. Hope you enjoy it. It gets kind of ground in. So we want to get this all cleaned up. We're going to be using the steam cleaner for that. And I found in the past it works very, very well without any chemicals or soaps. And it does absolutely no damage to the finish or to this plastic. We're going to be changing this ID system. This didn't work out. No matter how I printed or magic markered ID numbers on here, they just faded away. So we're going to change that. Inside here, we have the feeders. And here's one. And these have to be all cleaned out too. And I'll show you how the Apimaye feeders work, either for liquids or for candy, whatever you want. There are better bee frames in here and better comb on those frames. I'll show you how we're going to remove the old comb and insert new comb in here. Some of it is still good and we can reuse, but some of it is just not something I want to put into a new hive. So let's get the cleaner out, the steam cleaner out, and we'll get going. Okay, we're ready to start cleaning this hive up in preparation for modifying it to accept oxalic acid portals that we're going to place into it. What we're going to use to clean it is a steam cleaner. And is this absolutely necessary? No, of course not. It's me and it's you beekeepers that like to keep equipment a certain way. So we'll show you how well this Apimaye hive cleans up with absolutely no damage to its plastic components. Let's get started here. We're just using some live steam. And after a good blast of steam, we just wipe it down. I'm using a white Scotch-Brite pad and then just a paper towel to dry it off. And we can get a pretty good result on this plastic finish. Now you got some stubborn areas, we just hit them again with the steam, no chemicals. And again, wipe it down. And just here you can compare and contrast the two sides, this one here to before we started. So let's get the rest of this done. Same thing here. Generally on this landing board we might find a buildup of debris, but not so much here. These are tough. And while I used to paint hives and I used to use the Echo wood on the newer hives, I'm just sold on these Apimaye hives, not only for their infinite possibilities for ventilation and insulation for bees, but their toughness in standing up to external forces. Okay, this was the sensor that was in this Apimaye hive that we're reconditioning. And it really isn't that bad. I've seen them a whole lot worse at the end of a season, completely covered with propolis, embedded in the tops of the frames. This one is not bad, but we're going to replace it anyway since we're going to open it to change the battery. So let's get this little, open this. And yeah, you can see there's some propolis on it, but it's really in pretty good condition. I guess it was an early die out. They didn't have much time to form propolis. Anyway, we'll get this battery out because while we're doing this, we want to change the battery. Now, be aware of the ID number that's on here, 560264. Let's put that aside. From Broodminder, you can buy new sleeves like this, and you notice they have some pre-scored lines on them, so you just fold them over on those pre-scored lines, and you'll end up with a package that looks like that. Now, what we want to do first, before we insert the board back into the covering, is get a new battery in here. And if that's working, we should see a light start to flash. And we'll give it just a second, and there we go. Okay, so we know that seems to be working. To double check it before we seal it up, we'll go to the Broodminder app on my iPhone, and let's see. And there it is, 5601 CB 560264. Okay, we know that it's broadcasting and it's being picked up, so we can seal this thing up now. So let's take this and get it in here, like that. And Broodminder gives you some stickers, which works out really good to seal it right over. And there you go. This one is ready for installation onto the hive. That battery should last us a year. And easy change, ready to go. Sanitizing our Apimaye hive. And I'd like to talk to you about some of the mite control products that I've used in the past and my varying levels of success. First one I want to talk about is Formic Pro. A lot of people do use it, and it's very sensitive, using it according to directions and within the parameters of the temperature that they suggested. The problem I had with this is it killed all my bees. I would put them in the hives, and within 24 hours, I literally had hundreds of bees dead on the landing board. That's too toxic for me. I went to Apivar strips. Again, reading the precautions, reading the directions very carefully. I did not have good luck with the Apivar strips. They proved to my bees to be toxic. I know a lot of people use them. I know they're very successful, and I know it's probably a great product, but in my hands it didn't work. The last one I tried was HopGuard, and I thought this would be less toxic to the bees, and it certainly was, but it also didn't kill any mites for me. This brought me around to oxalic acid, and I want to talk about that for a minute because I resisted for a long time. I'll show you what I did. Well, like most of you, I tried different gadgets. This was the first one I tried, and the way it works is you charge this tank with butane, and then this part of the unit will fit on like this, and you tighten up this clamp, and there's a flame that's going to heat this chamber over here. This is the measuring or dosing part of it, and what happens is that when it's ready, this goes on top, the oxalic acid drops into the chamber down there, and out it comes here. Sounds like it would work, and I'm sure many people use it very effectively. Just I couldn't. This thing would get super hot, and you're going to burn almost anything in sight. You couldn't touch anything with this nozzle over here, especially on an Apimaye hive. You started melting plastic. So this didn't work out well for me, and I got rid of it. Now I'll show you this Frankenstein device that I made for the Apimaye hive, and I'll show you how it works. This is the wand that we're pretty much familiar with, and I have it mounted like this, and the wires will connect to the battery. The reason for this is that it's going to slide under the Apimaye hive. The bottom board will come out, this will slide in, and you have a charge of oxalic acid in here. You attach the electrical connections, and you're off and running. The reason I didn't like this was bulky, and carrying it from hive to hive, I'm lazy. But more importantly, I don't want any sources of heat inside the hive. So I tried this for a while, and I abandoned it. This is the rear of the Apimaye hive, and there is a bottom board that will slide right out, and it has the option to attach a pollen trap, which I don't use. It rides on two plastic rails here and here, and this was the idea, to use this gadget on a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, and it would slide right in like that, and then the two leads would be attached to your inverter or your 12-volt battery. As I mentioned before, I didn't like the idea of the heat source in the hive that I couldn't watch and I couldn't see, so I abandoned this. Eventually, I came to my favorite, which is the Oxalic, the Provap 110. And I absolutely love this unit. I have some of these heat control devices that I use for another purpose, and they're super accurate, super good. And I modified it a little bit with some copper tubing that I bought, copper pipe I should say, and some high temperature silicone tubing. And what I did was I put a piece on here, extended a little bit, and this part that's going to be in contact inside the hive doesn't get that hot to burn or melt anything. You have to be a little bit careful in the length of this tubing, because as you sublimate the powder into a gaseous state, it can have a tendency of congealing or cooling in here and clogging up this tubing. So if it's much longer than this, you're going to have a problem. The easy way is that you make several of these. They're easy and fast to make. And along with this new device that they have, you can put this cap on. There's no need to turn this thing upside down. Before, you had a charge in here and you kept it like this, and then when you were ready, you would turn it upside down. Now we don't do that anymore. Now we can load this dispenser with oxalic acid, keep it stationed on top over here, and when we're ready, we drop it right into the heating chamber. This is my favorite, and this is what I use now. And this is why we had to modify the Apimaye hive to accept this. Not just pushing it into the entrance of the hive. We wanted a more effective way of dispersing the oxalic acid. And that's why we're modifying the Apimaye hive. Just for a point of information, I wanted to know how much oxalic acid is going to be dropped in one application with this dispenser. So what I did was I took out this little scale that I have, and it's calibrated, and we're going to zero it out. And I'm looking for approximately 1 gram per load. I don't know what this is going to deliver, but that's okay, that's over 3 grams. Now obviously by packing it tighter you can make it more, but I don't think you can make it much less. So we'd like to adjust this because I only want about 1 gram delivered per charge in the Provap. So fortunately, looks like there's some adjustment screws on here that we can play around with. If I open it up, yeah, I might be able to move this plunger down and have less of a volume of oxalic acid, and that'll suit my purposes. Okay, let's do that. And one of the other changes that we're making in the Apimaye hive is there's a little card carrier over here. No matter what I put in here, it always seems to fade or got weather beaten and I couldn't read the identification numbers. On one of Fred Dunn's videos, I saw him use these brass discs that are used in plumbing to identify valves, and they look like they're going to work out really, really good. So I'm going to fasten one right up here. And that's pretty neat. Now that number 2 will be associated with the ID number on my Broodminder sensor. I use these sensors in all the hives. This will record temperature and humidity, and I have some sensors that record just temperature. I put those into the swarm traps. I just started with the scales, so I can't tell you how well they're going to work out. But this number now will be associated with this sensor, and it provides a real accurate, fast way for record keeping in the Broodminder app. I use this portal here for application of oxalic acid. Wide open, goes right in there. But I also like to give 1 dose in here, which is midway and somewhat high, and we are creating another port right over here, so we'll apply oxalic acid lower down and from this direction. Hopefully that'll cause a more homogeneous spread of the oxalic acid. We'll let you know how that works out too. So I'll show you how we insert that port, and this hive is ready. Okay, we're going to install the port right about in this area over here. It's going to look something like this, and it'll go right over here. This will enable us to administer approximately half the dosage of oxalic acid through this port and the other half through the front. I believe, and it has worked very successful, I get a more even distribution of the oxalic acid without overdosing the bees. So let's get our holes drilled and we'll show you how we insert that. Little pilot hole to start. And the drill we're going to use is an 11/16. And it goes right through. Insert's going to fit just like that. And we're going to get some epoxy to hold it in place. I'm using this plastic bonder from JB Weld. It's used for body panels in cars, and it's real easy to apply. We use equal amounts, more than enough. And with a spatula, just going to mix it thoroughly. With an acid brush, very light coating, you don't need much. And this is going to adhere to the outside of the hive, the inside of the hive, and to the insulation in between. Okay, let's insert that. It's pretty amazing once you do drill a hole like this, and you can put these ports wherever you want, but you can see how much insulation is in the walls of this hive. It's pretty substantial. Well, we've got the insert coated with the epoxy. We're just going to insert it, hold it for a second. and put a piece of tape over that and let it set. Okay, we'll give this about 15 minutes to set, and I'll show you how the insert works to seal it up. This is in the hive like this. This bolt will be screwed right like this to close it up when it's not in use. The nice thing about this is that there's plenty of room for the end of the Provap to fit right through here and go in as far as we need to go without any burning or melting of the plastic. Again, the reason I do this is because I believe in a more even distribution of the oxalic acid. It's the only varroamite treatment that I've used that has worked very successful. You might want to do it even on the wooden hives. Not just one entrance, but try multiple entrances to really fumigate the hive, if you want to think of it that way. Well, this hive is ready to go outside, and we're going to wait for some bees. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about how we do this or the Broodminder system, we're planning on doing another video on that. Leave it in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing.